Hey guys, it's Fonzie with Dip Your Car, and today I'm going to show you how to HyperDip your wheels step by step. Let's get started. First thing we're going to do is walk you through all the different materials that come in your HyperDip wheel kit so you know exactly what they are and how to use them. Now, most HyperDip wheel kits are going to come with 5 cans of HyperDip. Today we're using Shadow Black, which is one of our most popular HyperDip colors. You're also going to see a can of PreDip Spray. You're going to use this to properly clean and prep the surface of the wheels before you start spraying. You're also going to see an included HyperDip do's and don'ts card. Do not ignore this. Read through it thoroughly. This has a ton of tips and tricks that could be the difference between a successful and unsuccessful HyperDip install. It's got things on here like avoiding high humidity climates and making sure you wait 24 hours after you wash your wheels before you start spraying. Very important. And then this is what we call the HyperDip Wheel Kit Burrito. This has a ton of different goodies inside. You're going to see first a HyperDip instruction card. This will cover all the different steps that we're covering today, 1 all the way through 11, so you know exactly how to go step by step through the project so you don't make any mistakes. You're also going to see 2 clean microfiber towels. You're going to see 4 alcohol prep pads that we're going to use to make sure the surface of your wheels is perfectly clean and dry, dip release, and wheel masking bags. Now we're going to jump into the process so I can show you how to use all these different materials. Now you'll find that about 90% of our customers actually leave their wheels on the car while they HyperDip them. Now you can remove the wheels if you choose to, but if you remove the wheels, please don't lay them flat on the ground. You want to have them at least propped up at a 45-degree angle. Now we're going to leave the wheels on the car because it's just easier for us here. And the first thing we're going to do is install our brake masking bags. You're going to get 4 of these bags in your HyperDip wheel kit. What I like to do is open them up and just split it all the way down to the end, and then you're going to feed the bag first through the wheel. You're just going to thread it through all the way around. Now once you've got it around, you're going to grab the brake masking bag and you're going to actually feed it up and over your brake components. Obviously the idea here is to protect your rotors and your calipers from getting overspray while you're dipping your wheels. Take your time and make sure you do this properly before you move on to the next step. Now once you have the brake masking bag set, you just want to make sure that none of it is touching the back of the spokes, so we're all clear there. Now your next step is going to be applying the dip release. So you're going to take one of your clean microfiber towels, shake up your dip release, and we're going to apply this around the sidewall of the tire. This is going to make it so that when you overspray onto the sidewall and you're all done with your project, it'll be easy to peel off that excess. So what I like to do is fold up your microfiber like this, pour a little bit on there, and then work it into the towel a little bit. We really want to make sure we avoid getting the dip release onto the outer edge of the wheel. If it happens a little bit, it's no big deal. We still have a lot of cleaning to do, but make sure that you don't saturate the wheels with the dip release. Now that you got your dip release on there, it's time to move on to cleaning with PreDip Spray. Now we are not going to use the same microfiber towel that we used for dip release. We're going to put that aside and we're going to use our other clean microfiber towel. Now what I like to do is just spray a little bit of the PreDip onto the towel. We don't want to oversaturate the wheel because then it could get a little bit too wet, and moisture is not a friend of HyperDip. So we're going to go in and carefully clean the entire surface area of the wheel. I like to kind of pick a pattern. So what I'll do is I'll work on the inside of the spokes first. Then once I'm done with that, I'll move to the front face of the spokes and all the way around. If you have a little system, it actually helps to avoid missing different areas of the wheel. Now when it comes to cleaning the wheel with PreDip, this is one of those steps that you really want to take your time and do it thoroughly. Spend extra time making sure that outer edge of the wheel is really clean, just in case you got any dip release on there. After you've gotten the wheel nice and clean with PreDip, we're gonna come back in as just an extra precaution with our alcohol prep pads. You have 4 alcohol prep pads, 1 for each wheel. So you're gonna unfold it, and you wanna move a little bit quick here because the alcohol will evaporate over time. You're just gonna go back through the entire surface area of the wheel. This is just gonna make sure that if there's anything left behind after the PreDip, which is unlikely, but it's possible, we're gonna make sure that the wheels are as perfectly clean and dry as possible. And then back again around the edge of that wheel. Now we've got the brakes masked, we've got the wheel perfectly clean, we've got the outer edge of the tire prepped. It's time to start spraying your HyperDip. But before we jump into that, we want to make sure that you know exactly what your tack coats and wet coats should look like. So let me go do a demonstration for that so you can go into this project prepared. So your first 4 coats using HyperDip are going to be very light tack coats or dust coats. Now I find that some customers don't understand exactly how light a tack coat should be. If you put your tack coats on too wet, then you can have issues with surface defects. So let me show you exactly what a light tack coat or dust coat should look like. That's pretty much it. You're not seeing a lot of color, you're not seeing a lot of product buildup, but you want a really light dust coat for your first 4 coats of HyperDip. Now I'm going to stack on 1 more tack coat right on top. Now you can see that little bit of color, a little bit of product is starting to build. And remember, you're going to go to 4 tack coats before you start spraying wet. Do not skip your tack coats. Now that we've got 4 tack coats down on the surface, it's time to move to wet coats. Now with HyperDip, your wet coats, you want to utilize fast overlapping passes to wet out the surface. You want to avoid pooling up too quickly or too heavy. So let me show you what I mean. So we moved quickly, we got our 50% overlaps, and the entire surface of the panel is fully wet, but we didn't go too heavy and pool up too much. So we know what our tack coats should look like, we know what our wet coats should look like. Let's start spraying the wheel. 4 tack coats coming up. So we've got our 4 tack coats done. It's time to move into our wet coats. Now we've got 3 wet coats down on the wheel, and before we continue, what we like to do is realize you just can't hit all the angles of all the spokes while the wheel is in one position. So what we'll do is we'll put the car in neutral and carefully roll the car either forward or back, wherever you have some extra room, and try and rotate that wheel about 180 degrees. Then you can make sure that every spoke and every angle gets full coverage before you complete the project. Now we're all done with the spraying portion of our project. We went for 4 tack coats, and then you want to aim for between 4 to 6 wet coats. Just make sure you use all of the aerosols that come in your wheel kit. Now make sure that you give your wheel at least 45 minutes to dry before you start breaking it down. So what we want to do is start removing the excess HyperDip from your tire. And if you made sure that you put a little bit extra after every coat, you should be able to get a nice thick ribbon like this. and then there may be a little bit extra a little further back, and if there is, you can just use a microfiber towel and buff that right off. Now we're gonna go in and carefully remove our brake masking bag. What I like to do is just kind of bunch it up between some of the spokes. You don't want to just grab it and rip it on out. The dip isn't fully cured, it could be a little bit soft, so just be gentle here. And then if you decide that you want to peel off the center cap, you can do that, but outside of that, you're done with your HyperDip project. Now you're all done hyperdipping your wheels. A couple aftercare tips. You want to make sure you keep them nice and clean. Brake Dust Professional is perfect for that. You want to keep them feeling slick and easy to clean as well. Dip Coat Protective Spray goes a long way there. Both of them you can find at DipYourCar.com. If you have any questions at all, either before, during, or after your project, our customer service team is ready and willing to help you guys out. I really hope you guys enjoy hyperdipping your wheels. I will see you on the next video.